All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you for coming to the 6th edition of the Sports and Society Initiative Olympic Speaker Series. Alice Randall is our speaker today. She's a professor, an author, a songwriter, excellent in everything that she does, and I've had a chance to take a look at some of the videos that she is going to include in her presentation, and they're really incredible. I know that Alice has put a lot of work into this presentation on flags and anthems, which are such a part of the Olympics. So this is going to be really special. Thank you, Alice, for participating.
Thank you for inviting me, Andrew.
Absolutely.
And David.
Our next event, if you guys want to come with us on the road, is in Washington, D.C. on December 13th at the National Press Club, with the topic being the Cold War in the Olympics. And our speakers are Amira Rose Davis, who's a highly regarded professor at Penn State, and Professor Thomas Schwartz from here at Vanderbilt, political science and history professor, and my father, David Marinus, who wrote a book on the 1960 Olympics in Rome, which were a lot of Cold War sort of backstory at those Olympics. Our next event back here in Nashville is Tuesday, January 15th, in this room on the subject of Olympia, Leni Riefenstahl's famous controversial documentary about the 1936 Olympics in Berlin. And our speaker is Lutz Kopnick, who's a professor here at Vanderbilt who specializes in German and cinema. So he's a perfect person to lead that discussion. And then just wanted to remind everyone that we've got one event that's not on the calendar, April 2nd, the general counsel from the USOC, remember his name, David? His name escapes me at the moment. But he is an important man.
We'll know his name.
Yeah. We'll know his name by then. He's coming on April 2nd. He heard about what was happening here and wanted to be a part of it, so he's flying in from Colorado Springs to come speak to us. Really excited about that. But Alice, take it away. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you. And I'm excited to be here on a week that Vanderbilt football has done so particularly well, though football is not an Olympic sport. And those young men, I wrote to some of them. The quarterback lived in my house at Stambaugh. And I've actually had a health challenge this fall fighting breast cancer. And when I think of all that the boys, young men, endure on the field, the way that they refuse to get distracted by pain, they have been an inspiration to me. And I've written to them and they've written to me as they say that I've inspired them. But those young men are actually living mythology, inspiring us to stay focused and not be distracted by pain and adversity. And we can apply it in all kinds of ways that people don't normally think of, including ladies when they're fighting breast cancer. And so we're in the football room, and I'm proud to be in this football room. So Kari Blassingham was also one of my students. Dobbs has made videos for me. But today we're going to be talking about some Olympic sports. So this is, I want to thank you. I want to thank David Williams, who I share hometown with, for inviting me into the world of Vanderbilt athletics. I want to thank Andrew, who's an extraordinary writer with whom I share a city, for inviting me to share a few syllables on national flags and national anthems at the Olympics. I was thinking about this talk as meditations on Olympic flags and anthems in the light of Yang, Jesse, Tommie, Francis, Avery, Homer, Pierre, and Simone. Let's start, though, with a bit of trivia. Which national anthems share a melody? Anybody know? Britain and Liechtenstein, Estonia and Finland, South Africa, Zambia, and Tanzania. Which share a composer? Herbert Pepper wrote Senegal's and the Central African Republic's anthem melody. Which national anthems have no words? Some of you may know that. Spain, Bosnia, Herzegovina, Kosovo, and San Marino. Which national anthem was written by its first president? Senegal. Is there an Olympic anthem? That's a trick question. Officially, there is an Olympic hymn. So that's a trivia. But one step above trivia. In 1896, 1904, 1906, 1908, 1912, 1920, 1924, 1928, 1932, 1936, 1948, 1952, and 1956, 3 anthems were played at the close of Olympic ceremonies. In 1896, the year of the first modern Olympics, these were the anthems of Greece, France, and Holland. The idea was that each Olympics would end with the playing of the anthem of the originating country, Greece, the current host country, and the next host country. Some years this has shifted. Snippets of anthems of all the countries represented at the Olympics were played in the opening ceremony, some years, but not all. But those years, they were typically 3 played again at the closing ceremonies. And it has become the custom for the anthem of the gold medalists only to be played at the medaling ceremonies. National anthems and national flags are evolving elements of Olympic ritual. At the Olympics, both the raising of voice in the singing of a particular national anthem and the raising of arms in the hoisting of a particular national flag provide unique opportunities, we find, to perform patriotism and to perform protest. I speak to you today as a working artist, a songwriter born in one songwriting town, Detroit, who came to write in another songwriting town, Nashville, via Harvard University. The words I will speak here today, like the songs and like the Olympic ceremonies itself, will have multiple distinct parts. We will start with the twin focus on the 1964 Tokyo Olympics and the 2008 Beijing Olympics from the perspective of the creation of global girls. From there, we will move on to the 1968 Olympics and Tommie Smith's striking performance of patriotism and protest involving both the American anthem and the American flag. Then we will move backwards to a consideration of Jesse Owens' 1936 podium moments as performance of patriotism and citizenship. Then forward into a textual exploration of specific national anthems, including our own Star-Spangled Banner. Moving toward the finish line, we will touch on the roots of the Olympic anthems in the ancient world and consider ways the Olympic hymn, the song specifically written for the Olympic Games, functions and doesn't function as a universal anthem. We will close with a global girl standing tall in her international womanhood as an anthem plays and a flag is raised. Got a lot of questions to think about in this little time we have together. Do national anthems and national flags, symbols in sound and fabric, threaten to destroy the Olympic spirit? Or do they help us define the Olympic spirit? Do anthems and flags create opportunities to celebrate individual countries as an aspect of celebrating a sense of global citizenry united by an Olympic ideal? Are they extraordinary opportunities to confront nations with the reality of how far we fall from our ideals? Are there times and places where the anthem and flag work with an athlete to make the ideal for a fleeting Olympic moment real? And we're going to do all that in about 35 minutes. Let's turn down the lights and get really started. That's Ode to the Motherland, considered China's second national anthem, and the song presented in the opening ceremonies in the Beijing Olympics. The girl you see here is Yang Pei, who was declared not pretty enough and not poised enough to sing the song at an event as significant as the Olympic opening ceremony. She looks pretty to me. She was replaced with Lin Miyoki, who lip-synced. Olympics matter. National anthems matter. National flags matter. Ceremonies matter. Which is to say, in this particular moment, November of 2018, these things, Olympics, national anthems, national flags, ceremonies, are of value even when they are devalued. I started off life as a black girl in 1959 Detroit, and I gained my first inkling of what it meant to be a global girl by watching the 1964 Tokyo Olympics on television. This is a bit of what I saw. Do the people of Cameroon never wear suits? Do the people of Australia always wear them? These are questions my 5-year-old self asked, and these are 2 questions I imagine 5-year-old girls asking around the world when it was revealed that Yang sang but could not appear on stage to sing because she wasn't pretty enough. If I am not an athlete, is it more important how I look than how I sing? How pretty do I have to be if I'm not an athlete? At the Olympics, anthems and flags raise unexpected questions in no small part because anthems and flags at the Olympics sign and signal in three different ways. They sign and signal independently, and sign and signal in relation to other national anthems and national flags, and sign and signal in the context of an Olympic flag and what is called the Olympic anthem. In this time we have together, I invite you to meditate on the national anthem you know best in the context of the invisible Yang Pei, the very visible Jesse Owens and Tommie Smith, the hidden Francis Scott Key and Avery Brundage, the almost forgotten Homer and Pierre de Coubertin, and finally, the unforgettable Simone Biles. My central question is this: how do national anthems and national flags performed and performing in the Olympic Stadium work for or against the creation of global citizens? National anthems are strange song beasts. They are once proud and humble tunes. An anthem will be sung by an immense number of people who cannot sing. It is the destiny of an anthem to have its tune mangled. It is the destiny of an anthem to be sung by people who do and do not want to sing it. It is the destiny of most national anthems to hold a contested and precarious space. We saw at the 2008 Olympics the Chinese national anthem, March of the Volunteers, displaced by an unofficial Chinese national anthem, Ode to the Motherland. In the United States, it has been suggested that America, the song that begins, My Country 'Tis of Thee, or the Battle Hymn of the Republic, or God Bless America, would make a superior national anthem to the Star-Spangled Banner. The case can be made, and we will touch on it later, that the Star-Spangled Banner should be retired and should not continue to be the national anthem. I disagree. To make the case the Star-Spangled Banner should maintain the exalted position as our national anthem, I would start by taking a close look at its powerful presence as part of American Olympic history, where the Star-Spangled Banner has been braided into international memory that informs international understanding of the sometimes complex and always contradictory brand that is America. Our national anthems, extraordinary opportunities to confront nations with the reality of how far we fall from our ideals. You've just seen Jesse and Tommie. Or are there times and places where the anthem and the flag work with an athlete to make the ideal for a fleeting Olympic moment real? Perhaps they are both and more. The examples of Jesse Owens and Tommie Smith suggest there is inherent in the meddling ceremony with its performance of a national anthem and the flying of a national flag the possibility of taking a national grievance to an international audience and an international grievance to a national audience, precisely because the Olympics occurs on the globe and in a particular country. In the case of Tommie Smith, he took a national grievance, a sense of being unjustly treated in America, to an international audience. In the case of Jesse Owens, he took an international grievance, discussed with the rise of Nazism, and flung his athletic achievements into the face of the Fuhrer with a wave of American flag and a sounding of the chords of the Stars and Stripes. Colin Kaepernick is the heir to Olympian Tommie Smith that you just saw in that first clip. Tommie Smith understood the power of not doing what was expected when the anthem played. Kaepernick builds on that understanding. Oh, say, does the Star-Spangled Banner yet wave over the land of the free and the home of the brave? Ironically, as I watched as a 9-year-old girl in Detroit, Tommie Smith lift his arm defiantly into the air at the Mexico Olympics, and I sang along at home the words to the tune he refused to sing, my answer was yes. Yes, the Star-Spangled Banner still waves over the land of the free and the home of the brave. I saw Tommie Smith as free and brave, and America as better for his protest. A half-century later, I still see it that way. Everybody didn't see it that way. which brings me to Francis Scott Key and Avery Brundage. I've said Nashville is a songwriting town. It's not just any old songwriting town. And those of you who don't know, I have written a #1 country song for Trisha Yearwood. I've written for Johnny Cash and all kinds of other people. I published Garth Brooks. Nashville, so I'm in a position to tell you that Nashville is a town that likes to celebrate songs created by 3 chords and the truth. That's a phrase from my old friend Harlan Howard. What truth does a close look at the song lyrics of our own national anthem, the Star-Spangled Banner, and the anthems that have been played at Olympic medal ceremonies tell us about our understanding of nations and of global citizenry? The Star-Spangled Banner, the American national anthem, became the American national anthem pretty late, in March 3rd, 1931. The Library of Congress collections contain several hundred editions of the Star-Spangled Banner, including an original Francis Scott Key manuscript. There are many, and I got a chance to have dinner at the Library of Congress last year with the librarian, with our Congressman Jim Cooper, and get to see some of these treasures. There are many copies of the Star-Spangled Banner written out in Key's own hand. It seems he liked to give them out to friends and relations as gifts towards the end of his life. And all of the copies include a word that many who claim they love the anthem forget is contained within the anthem. And that word is, does anyone know what it is? That word is slave. Oh, say can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming. And the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave, o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? These are the words that you know. But what of these? Their blood has washed out their foul footsteps, pollution. No refuge could save the hireling and slave from the terror of flight or the gloom of the grave. In the 3rd verse of the American national anthem, slaves are pictured as frightened and doomed. This reference has led many to conclude that the Star-Spangled Banner is a highly problematic, possibly racist song. What we know for sure is that the Star-Spangled Banner was written in 1814 by a highly problematic, possibly racist man, Francis Scott Key. Key was a lawyer, the owner of a large Maryland plantation, and a slave owner. From 1833 to 1840, Key held the office of district attorney for the city of Washington. While holding that office, Key managed to spark a race riot in Washington, D.C. in 1835. I suspect few of you know that. Did anybody in this room know that Francis Scott Key, and this is not contested history, sparked a race riot in 1835? You did? Good. And probably just a few, I'm glad that somebody in this room did know that. And probably just a few more of you know this, that the third verse of the anthem, as Jeffrey Robinson, director of the ACLU Trone Center for Justice and Equality, so elegantly and concisely put it, celebrates the murder of enslaved people. What we think we know is that the Star-Spangled Banner celebrates the victory at Fort McHenry by the Americans over the British. That's only part of the story it tells, if you look carefully at the text. The Star-Spangled Banner also celebrates victory over enslaved Africans seeking their freedom. Key had little respect for African Americans and Africans. He described Africans in his writing as, quote, a distinct and inferior race of people, unquote, and described the presence of African Americans as something, quote, which all experience proves to be the greatest evil that afflicts a community, unquote. The anthem Key wrote ends in a question mark and a very interesting rhyme. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the home of the free and the land of the brave? And what of those slaves he owned? And what of the slave? What of those who are not free? Do we hear underlying this understanding of America in our anthem? And I go back to Mr. Harlan Howard on this, and I go back to Mr. Bobby Braddock, who wrote He Stopped Loving Her Today, and I talked to Bobby about this. You pick your rhymes carefully. Home of the brave signs home of the slave. Do we hear in this underlying understanding of America in our anthem written by Key, home of the free and land of the slave? Does our anthem sign and signal if it does not say that slavery is as intrinsic to the national identity as bravery, with which it also rhymes? Does it anticipate the new Jim Crow? Leave those questions for you to answer. Ours is not the only problematic anthem. Jennifer Finney Boland published an article in the New York Times in March of this year questioning if our anthem is racist, some people say it isn't, while announcing that Germany's anthem is definitely sexist and making the case that Algeria and Italy's anthems are exceptionally bellicose or warlike. Boylan shined a particularly harsh spotlight on the Italian anthem, which relishes the drinking of its enemy's blood, though I note that the Italian anthem calls out louder for unification and love. One of my favorite national anthems is Senegal's. Senegal's anthem, called in translation The Red Lion, is about as old as I am. It was written in 1960 by Senegal's first president, as I told you, Léopold Sédar Senghor. Unfortunately, because Senegal has never won a gold medal or hosted the Olympics, this song in its entirety is not a song that has been officially heard at the Olympics. Though those years when they play the snippets of all going in, part of it's been heard. But we can imagine that Amadou Diaba, who won a silver medal in the men's 400-meter hurdles in Seoul during 1988, may have sung this song to himself over a round of drinks in the Olympic Village. Let me share a few of the lyrics in French, then in translation. Fibre de mon cœur vert, épaule contre épaule, mais plus que frères, aux Cingolaises debout, une sont la mer et les sauces, une sont la steppe et la frette, salut Afrique mère. Fibers of my green heart, shoulder to shoulder, my more than brothers, O Cingolese arise, join the sea and the springs, join the steppe and the forest. Hail, Mother Africa. Senegal, these are pieces from now. Senegal, we take on your great work to shelter the chicks from the falcons, to make from east to west, north to south, arisen, one single people, a people without seams, but a people turned to all the winds of the earth. Senegal, like you, like all our heroes, we will be hard without hatred, with two open arms. The sword in peacetime we will store in the scabbard, for work and words will be our weapon. The Bantu is a brother, and so is the Arab and the white. But if the enemy burns our borders, we will be risen with weapons in our hands, one people, defying all sorrows with its faith, young and old, men and women. Death, yes, we say death, but not shame. Loss is contemplated, but not dishonor, in that beautiful anthem of Senegal's. Unification, brotherhood, sisterhood, all contemplated, all celebrated, along with natural beauty in this anthem. The French national anthem, the Marseillaise, is a call to battle in contrast. Who can forget the scenes from Casablanca where Victor Laszlo has the band play the Marseillaise to drown out a German nationalist song? If you remember that scene, you remember that the actor's eyes are full of tears. What you may not know is almost all the extras in that scene were, in fact, refugees from Hitler's Germany. People many of whom had family in the camps when that scene was being recorded. The tears in those actors' eyes announce that the call to battle, the Marseillaise, is also a call to courage. The Japanese national anthem is a pure celebration of nature. Consider these beautiful lines. Till what are pebbles now? By age united to mighty rocks will grow, whose venerable sides the moth doth line. By age united to mighty rocks shall grow, whose venerable sides the moths doth line. Anthems functions as ways to validate and promote a wide range of violent and benevolent impulses. My ears have discerned a single abiding common theme, and I have listened to every single anthem that has been played in an Olympics gold medaling ceremony. The national anthems associated with the Olympics convey an awareness that nations are not inevitable. They are born in conflict. They must be prepared for conflict. Continuity is a thing to wish for and pray for, not a thing to be counted on. The Israeli anthem tenderly positions the precarious and fragile nation of Israel as an entity with the potential of being revived and reborn in a single human eye, in a single human soul. The Israeli anthem proclaims the Israeli state at once secure and insecure. These are some of the lines. As long as in the heart within the Jewish soul yearns, and towards the eastern edges onward, and eye gazes towards Zion, our hope is not yet lost. The hope that is 2,000 years old, to be a free nation in our land, the land of Zion, Jerusalem. Only once has Israel won a gold medal in the Summer Olympics. Gail Friedman won in 2004 for windsurfing. Let us hear the tune of the Israeli anthem as Gal, born in Hadera near the sea, taught to windsurf by his daddy, stands in 1975. He was born in 1975, stands on the podium in 2004. Avery Brundage wanted to steal that moment from us. He wanted to ban national anthems at the Olympics. He did ban Tommie Smith from the Olympics. That's the black man who raised his fist. He worked hard to keep Jim Thorpe from having the medals he earned restored to him. Every story needs a villain. In the story of national anthems and flags of the Olympics, my homeboy, Avery Brundage, born in 1887 in Detroit City, is the villain in the piece. Brundage started off fine enough. He was born in Detroit like me and David Williams. He became an Olympic athlete, then a successful businessman, rose within the ranks of the American Olympic Committee, and got himself appointed as president of the International Olympic Committee, serving for 2 decades from 1952 to 1972. Many people view him as a great man who oversaw the Olympics moving into the modern world of the television audience while protecting ancient ideals. I see him as a man who first competed against Jim Thorpe, lost to him, and then fought efforts to have Thorpe's Olympic medals restored after he was stripped of them on the charge he had violated his amateur status. Brundage wielded the cudgel of amateurism to keep sport elite, to bend it to a gentleman ideal that meant only the rich, the lucky, or the state anointed could afford to participate. Brundage was not only the man who had Tommie Smith thrown out of Olympic Village after his protest, he squashed any career Smith might have had in sport. Brundage waved the cudgel of political neutrality to promote the politics that reinforced his power and his privilege. Avery Brundage tried to get anthems removed from the Olympics, claiming they were divisive. Brundage brought a ban on anthems to a vote on 2 separate occasions to the Olympic Committee. The anthem battles were his rare losses. What if Brundage opposed anthems not because he believed them to be divisive, but because he knew they sustained diversity? What if he heard and saw in the medaling ceremony the invitation I see and hear with the flying of the flag and the singing of the anthem? An invitation to be Israeli for a moment, to be American for a moment, with all the complexity, to sing with the victor, head held high or head hung low and arms raised, to sing with the gold medalist and drink from his or her or their or the cup, singing victory, is to feel the complex weight and context of victory with new empathy. Or perhaps Brundage heard something very different. I know this: empathy is a dangerous thing for those who believe there is a single way, and it is as white, male, and right as the Olympic hymn, so beloved by Brundage, with words that are as sexist as the German national anthem. So this is our Olympic hymn. O ancient immortal spirit, pure Father, of beauty, of greatness, of truth, descend, reveal yourself, and flash like lightning here within the glory of your own earth and sky, at running and at wrestling and at throwing. Shine in the momentum of noble contest and crown with unfading branch and make the body worthy and iron-like. Plains, mountains, and seas glow with you like a white and purple great temple, and hasten to this temple here, your pilgrim, O ancient immortal spirit, every nation. The Olympic hymn is a backward glance to an ideal that is rooted in an idealized antiquity, which brings us to Homer, the real deal with singing words that bounce into now. 1776 BC, founding the original games in the time of Homer, just before. Homer arguably mentions the games in the Iliad, which I hope you all know was written by Homer as a poem meant to be sung. The Iliad and the Odyssey are both long songs. And they were designed by Homer to be sung precisely because singing helps an audience remember. And that has big implications for anthems at the Olympics. T.F. Scanlon of Harvard, in his article, Homer, the Olympics and the Heroic Ethos, cites this passage in the Iliad as a specific reference to the Olympics. For him, Neleus was owed a great debt in shining Elis, 4 prize-winning horses with their own chariot, going to an Olympiad, for they were about to race for a tripod, but there Augeas, the lord of men, took them and sent them away, their driver, who was angry for the sake of his horses. That's the Iliad 11.698-702, for those who want to check that out. 1896. This is the year of the first modern Olympics. Were women included? No. 1896, first year of the modern Olympics. Baron Pierre de Coubertin imagined a modern Olympics and made that dream a reality, which included an Olympic hymn written especially for the occasion. The first modern Olympics in 1896 was also the first Olympics with national anthems and flags. Had to be. The ancient Olympics were only open to free Greek men. It would all been Greek flags. Grand as it was, storied as it may be, Olympics in the ancient world was a decidedly local and male event. The modern Olympics was from the start global, and this globalism was underscored by the presence of national anthems and national flags. Though the original Olympic Charter forbade medal counts that include ranking by country, say France has 43 or Japan has 2, it invited the symbols of nationalism in the form of the flag and the anthem. And like all vibrant guests, the symbols of nationalism, once invited in, did what they wanted to do, not necessarily what they were invited to do. Coubertin believed that the Olympics was far more than an event. It was for him a philosophy of life, exalting and combining qualities of body, will, and mind in a way that was referred to in 1896 as celebrating, quote unquote, the joy of effort. And it is this joy of effort and the critique of the joy of effort that comes into play when an athlete stands on the podium, receives a gold medal, watches their national flag get hoisted high, and hears the strains of their national anthem. Is there too much effort required to get to this place? Is effort fairly rewarded? Has the effort been made in such difficult circumstances that there is no joy, there is only bitterness? These are questions that rise to my mind as I watch the Olympic medal ceremonies, because my understanding of the joy of effort has been complicated by the performances on the awards podiums that I've watched from home on television, starting with the Tokyo Games in 1964. And now people not only watch them on television, they watch them online, on and on, in video on YouTube. This is something Coubertin could not have imagined. His games were intimate. His games were for the privileged few who could afford to travel to the host country and be in the stadium. And originally, his Olympic Games were all male. Women would start to be included in 1900. The year I first watched, as I told you, Tokyo in 1964, women's volleyball was being included for the first time, exponentially increasing the number of women athletes participating in the Games. And by the time I was born in 1959, poor people who could not afford to travel could watch the Olympics. It is estimated that 3.6 billion, that's worth repeating, 3.6 billion people watched the 2016 Olympics Games on television. 26.5 million Americans watched the opening ceremony that year in 2016. In 1896, by contrast, in Athens, the first modern Olympics, approximately 80,000 people were present to witness a very specific joy of effort. The joy of effort that Coubertin had imagined, the joy of effort beloved by a peaceful and privileged society concerned with the preservation of human dignity. I share those concerns. But that joy of effort has been transformed and strengthened by millions of witnesses, by a large and global audience that have interpreted and critiqued the 5 interlaced rings of the Olympic flag by the light of their varied and radically diverse experience of the joy and pain of effort, of the reward and futility of effort. Yes, the 5 interlaced rings are still symbols, that's of the Olympic flags, of a united globe, a globe united by fair play. But they are also, for some, symbols of a globe united by awareness that fair play inside and outside the Olympic Stadium remains, for many, a chimera. The founders of the modern Olympics acknowledge that sport, this is a direct quote, sport occurs within the frameworks of society, unquote. They sought to create competition between individuals, not nations, with all involved saluting a shared flag that symbolized the union of 5 continents with blue, yellow, black, green, and red circles. They sought to create new symbols. Life has taught us that Olympic athletes are able to create art by using old symbols in new ways, ways that emphasize aspects of an emerging and evolving sense of global citizenry symbolized in the Olympic flag. This is in the current governing regulations of the Olympics. An Olympic flag of larger dimensions than any other flag must fly for the entire duration of the Olympic Games from a flagpole placed in a prominent position in the main stadium and in all other venues placed under the responsibility of the OCOG. Such flags are hoisted during the opening ceremony and lowered during the closing ceremony of the Olympic Games. And 2, large numbers of Olympic flags shall be flown in the Olympic Village in all competition and training venues, in the host city, and in all sites, venues, and places placed under the responsibility of the OCOG. So many ways to explore the sounds that eclipse sinew. The roar of the anthem, the snap of the flag. So many ways to explore the power of performance and sport as performative art. When Jesse Owens, when Tommie Smith step off the track and onto the winner's podium, they become part of a powerful tableau vivant, a living sculpture, a flash of theater that underscores sport is a performative art precisely because the viewers imbue the observation of sport and the gestures of sport with meaning, particularly the gestures that are associated with the awarding of medals. Standing in their very different postures on the center podium, Jesse Owens and Tommie Smith performed in their very different ways the insistence that they were more than muscles, they were brains and conscience. They embodied the ironic truth that America was still the home of the free and the land of the brave, though they would be punished for it, and they were punished for it. And in their punishment reveal that it is often difficult for Black people to be free and brave in America. It's often been noted that the Fuhrer did not shake Jesse Owens' hand, but the US president didn't either when he got back. For me, the greatest power of the anthem is the ability to invite all in the stadium and all in the television audience and all watching on YouTube to be, if only for the moments the bars of the song are playing, the nationality of those that claim that song as anthem, those words as identity, that tune as wish and promise. For those that accept that invitation, there is the moment of the singing with the one standing on the podium with the gold around their neck, an embedded moment of questioning what you have to give up to say those words and whether or not those words are true or lie. But first you have to put those words in your own throat and say, for this moment, I will put down one national identity and put on another. And with that shifting, with that moment under another flag, one is saying that nations are not inevitable, that nationalities can be fluid. And so it is with the performance of specificity, we sometimes arrive at the universal. I think that's a very important concept here and for America. It is with the performance of specificity, we sometimes arrive at the universal. An essence of the Olympic spirit is a celebration of excellence and global inclusion, made manifest in exertion that celebrates the power of human spirit to move towards a worthy goal as a universal, as a unifying good that unites us despite the reality we are divided in our choice of goals beyond the sphere of sport. Olympics begin with a walk away from the world into the Olympic Village, which is conceived of as a place where national divisions matter less and sports divisions matter more. You walk into the games, if you are an athlete, behind a national flag. During the games, for the time one is competing, you are a gymnast first, an equestrian first, swimmer first. The medal ceremony after is a liminal space, a between space, a preparation for being thrown out of the magical time and space that is the Olympics at its best and back into the divisions of a divisive and bellicose world. And later at the end, there's a remove from the Olympic Village, one flag bearer from each country, perhaps. And sometimes there's only one remaining person from each country. Athletes arrive at the Olympics en masse. They leave when they will, after their race is run. And those in the closing processions march as a march of athletes, not separated by nations, though those flags are there. The flag bearers carry high flags that sound as they wave, with the sounds that eclipse sinew, that say, the sport is over, the art has begun. And with the art, the sound of the song, the graphics of the flag, we are shut out of time that is the Olympics, that is the intersecting circles, and return to a world of divisions and strife as opposed to striving. We are exiting the world in which we are defined by what we do and return to a world where we are defined so often by where and how we were born. But we are returned questioning the signs and the sounds, and that is a power of the Olympics. And we are returned remembering, and that is another power of the Olympics. Olympics help us remember precisely because Olympic memories are enhanced by sign and sound. And Olympics give many on the globe a set of common experiences. Millions of children in the world have a shared common experience of watching lip sync at the opening ceremonies. Millions of baby boomers and yuppies of crying with Israel at Munich. Wild and young brave people around the globe recall or saw just yesterday being emboldened watching Tommie on the podium, or recall being shocked. A national anthem played at the Olympics is a call to remember all we have been for good and for evil when we were divided, and all the peace and beauty we have created unified to remember who we are together when we are at our best. I'm reminded of the words of that anthem we have not heard at an Olympic medal ceremony, the Red Lion, the Senegalese anthem and its wish for a people without seams. Though the parade of athletes at the end of the Olympics performs the ideal of no divisions, on the podium we often see the seams showing as athletes reveal in their patriotism and poise, an embodied, almost invisible protest that subtly shifts the world's perceptions of what they thought the athlete would be into an observation of what the athlete has proven to be. I see seams here. Let's turn that down right there. I see seams here in the face of Simone Biles. I see the place of tension that is all of her excellence sewn to all she overcame in the land of the free and the home of the brave, to be free and brave. If she had lived in the days of the ancient games, songs would have been written about her. She lives now. This talk is her spoken word song, tying Athens to Nashville, where we announce and remember. There is a time and a place where anthem and flag rise in an athlete's face, Simone, and make the Olympic ideal for a fleeting Olympic moment real, Simone. Seamed and seamless, Simone, claiming Key's anthem as her very own, making his lies true. Let Brundage rock in his grave, plenty pretty justice chatter on Global Girl Simone's Twitter page, calling out, calling down Nasser, with the anthem ringing in her ears and the flag flying in her eyes, Simone. And those are my meditations on flags and anthems at the Olympics. Thank you for joining me.
And Alice has graciously agreed to take some questions if folks have questions about what she had to say today.
I encourage you to listen to Senegal's anthem. There are lots of great ones out there.
Can you expand a little bit on why you say, even with the problems there are with the national anthem and Francis Scott Key, why you wouldn't want to change it?
Because there are some wonderful things about it. It's a call to being, land of the free and home of the brave. And I myself, I'm an African American, but I have a great grandfather who was a Confederate general. I believe that life goes on, and we move on, and we make new history. And I think that someone like Simone Biles, standing on that podium, she makes, in the time of Francis Scott Key, it was not the land of the free and the home of the brave. But with Tommie Smith, and in the time of Tommie Smith, it wasn't either. He was punished. He had death threats. Simone Biles is a world-renowned gymnast who is in her poise and grace and in the changing world. She stands tall in the land of the free and the home of the brave because she helped it be. When I said Nasser, she's one of the people who called out the abusive doctor who's abusing large numbers of white women and women of color, gymnast doctor who was not called down by his institution originally. She called him out. She said, "Me too." And when they tried to put someone on the Olympic Committee who had been complicit in all of that, she said, "Not now." So I think that in Tommie Smith's pride, and also Jesse Owens, and in all the amazing, all kinds of American athletes who brought their hard story, Jim Thorpe, to that Olympic space and said, "I am free and brave," that they have stood under that anthem and they cleaned the anthem with their sacrifices. And so to me, too many people, and our soldiers, in the Vietnam War, particularly I'm from Detroit, the large numbers of black men who died fighting for the Stars and Stripes in Vietnam from Detroit, we've purchased the price of the anthem and the flag. But we've got to tell the whole story. And we've got to tell how it wasn't, Francis Scott Key may have written it, but what he wrote is not the American story. He had that horrible whole verses about hireling, which is the poor whites, and the slaves being inferior. He believed in the superiority of a planter class, as did, in the European context, the Baron, who started the modern Olympics, had some impulses that way, but he also had the idea of a global meeting. So things, when to be grown is to know very few things are purely good or purely evil. The vast majority of things in real life are complicated and good and bad. And the challenge is in every moment to figure out how to build on the good, note the bad and separate yourself from it. How to move on. It's not casting away. We would cast off everything, including our parents, if we said everything that ever did anything wrong could not be part of our life. But we are not here to perpetuate the wrongs or be blind to the wrongs. So I think we've invested, all of us, white, black, Asian, all ethnicities of Americans, have invested too much in the flag just to throw it away. Because America's beauty makes it sound like, because we should not forget where we came from. And we came from slavery. Black people are the biggest investors in America. They invested with their body and blood. So I say, own this anthem. It is our history. But also own that the protest, that we fought for the right to protest. That we began in a revolution, white men fighting against England, protesting. They were violently protesting, and I'm proud of my founding fathers. But I'm also proud of Colin Kaepernick kneeling, and I'm proud of the people who choose to stand or choose to pray. That is the diversity of the American experience. That is who we are at our best. That is Jesse Owens standing in the podium, though he couldn't come and eat in a restaurant, even in the banquet, come in the front door of the banquet hall where he would be honored. He had the dignity to still go. So to me, that is why, and I do feel, when I looked at that Israeli anthem, I tear up. I love the moments in the Olympics where we have these individual anthems that we can, for a moment, engage with empathy in another person's nationalism. Because it's the unwillingness to do that that creates these false and inflexible barriers, particularly false for Americans, where unless you are descended from indigenous people, we have all come here to this land. And the vast majority of Americans have a lot of mixture in their background. And so you have reason to celebrate with so many national anthems. But I want to celebrate with anthems that have nothing to do with me. And I also point out that our anthem, I think the ones about drinking the people's blood, the Italian, there are far more violent and strange anthems, and the sexism abiding in anthems. I love that Senegal, it literally invites in everyone by name and talks about the strength of words. So anyway, I think that we should be proud and we should be willing to see all the ways, the multiple and diverse ways that people celebrate the anthem, and to recognize that you can celebrate it standing up, sitting down, lots of different ways. Yes?
I'd just like to say, I am an ambassador for civilian conservation. My father was among the men who General George C. Marshall credited their training with what won World War II. And I'm the proudest of the proud to know that my father was among those men who kept this country free. And also, the old spiritual, W. Du Bois said, are the greatest gift that the Negro has given to America, and they have lost that because it has been used in so many different ways, and they have not kept it pure. So therefore, it is not serving the purpose that it once was able to do. And myself, my mother and father gave birth to two sons who were both born on the birthdays of American presidents. And this is something that's still being investigated today. And I do not apologize for anything. The men who helped raise the flag in Iwo Jima, they were CCC boys. And also, this present president was born on Flag Day. So I will not ever disrespect it. We lost our property as a result of the civil rights movement. I grew up in a White House, and I will always support the one in Washington. And I just had to say that.
I certainly agree with supporting the flag and also supporting the nation, and realize that, but the Olympics are about globalism, which is wonderful too. Any other, yes?
So thank you for your remarks, very thoughtful. So we have a separation of church and state.
Mm-hmm.
Do you anticipate any forecast of separation of sport and any flags or anthems due to the controversy?
Well, it's been interesting. It's been brought up, and it's been repeatedly brought up. I could have given a whole talk on, there is an increasing spirit, and it's to have only this, to ban national anthems and national flags at the Olympics, and only to use the Olympic flag and the Olympic anthem. But it's never, it's gotten, it has to, I think it takes a 2/3 vote. It has even won by majority vote at times. But there is an abiding interest in these individual flags. But things, I don't have finally, to me it's not a ditch to die in. I see the positive power of exposing people to other anthems. One of the reasons I chose to give you YouTube, not just all from American news, to realize this is something that's being covered around the world, covered by reporters with different languages. But I think that things evolve, and it could be one day that what will be most powerful is the shared flag. I think the Olympic hymn is extremely problematic. It is quite sexist. It does really look at, without thinking about, the antiquity as some sort of elevated ideal. The fact of the matter is, when you won the games back in the antique times, among the things they gave you, for example, you got the little laurel leaves, you didn't get a gold medal. Sometimes they gave you slave women as an actual reward. They also wrote you songs. I mean, this is not something for us to just idealize and want to return to without examining what was included in, which is not to say we shouldn't build on it, but it's not something, the Olympic hymn has not really been looked into carefully, in my opinion, since 1896, that. Well, thank you so much. You all have given me a lot of time. I appreciate it. Appreciate Andrew and David for inviting me here. I appreciate all the Americans who have stood on the podium in so many different ways. And I encourage you to get to know all the verses of your anthem. And and maybe Nashville should, I'm going to get out some, maybe Bobby Braddock and some people should be giving us some new verses, because things get to evolve over time. It's about preserving and evolving. And maybe it's not to end the old verses, maybe we just need to add some new verses. So, thank you.